Hey there, everyone. That sexy nerd is back again. And we got Napoleon. We got the new episode of Napoleon up. I know I missed it. I'm a little late. But anyway, I want to see exactly, because, again, I might know a little bit about Napoleon. I know that he's not really even French. Like, I was shocked to know that. He's technically Italian. Because, yes, the French did own the island of Corsica. And he was born on that island. But used to be owned by Italy, so it's not the first time though that an Italian has basically taken all of control of France away, or taken over all of control of France, or nearly taken all of control of France. There was there's the show that's come out recently called The Serpent Queen. It's based on Catherine de Medici, and she basically was like Queen of France for a very good time and started a whole bunch of it's a very intricate story. You gotta listen. I should have done a reaction to that whole show, but I was way too busy to do that, and it's on Stars, but it's a very good show. Watch it. I recommend it wholeheartedly, and hopefully there's a season 2, or at least find out a bit more about Catherine de Medici. She's a very interesting woman. I want to see how this already off to a bad start journey is gonna continue. So let's just get into the video, and please smash that like button if you want to see more sexy and nerdy content, and subscribe if you think I deserve it. And let's do this thing, y'all.
Nile River, July 7th, 1798. The mood of the officers has turned. They've been in the desert for a week. Their men are exhausted, and some think Napoleon has finally gone too far. General Murat is the most blunt. Napoleon has mismanaged this expedition, he says. The troops are going mad and dying of thirst. This operation was hasty and poorly planned. The British fleet could trap them here at any minute. They should withdraw, secure the Mediterranean, then return under better conditions. Others know.
This seems familiar. Kind of feels like his expedition to Russia.
Murat's words carry weight. At 28, he's young, the same age as Napoleon, but he's also a hero of the revolution. The first man to lead troops in singing the revolutionary anthem, La Marseillaise. Yet Napoleon coldly shuts him down. They will continue to Cairo. General Murat, however, takes a different route. The morning after the showdown, Murat, knowing his career is over and the expedition doomed, rides into the desert and shoots himself. Yet another soldier lost to Napoleon's ambition.
That's dark.
Thanks so much to Trade First for keeping us history-loving beans caffeinated. 1 week before, it's July 1st, and Napoleon's invasion of Egypt is so far a total success. He's crossed the Mediterranean, eluded the British fleet, and taken Alexandria. On the way, he'd even forced the Knights of Malta to capitulate, plundering their treasure to fund his campaign. But there is one little fly in the ointment, specifically a British fly by the name of Admiral Horatio Nelson. See, upon arriving in Alexandria, Napoleon found out exactly how close he'd been to getting caught by the British, as a Royal Navy vessel had been in Alexandria only 24 hours before the French arrived.
Really?
That meant that the British would find them here soon enough, so he began drawing up his fleet to defend Alexandria against this inevitable naval attack, lest they be defeated at sea and stranded in Egypt. Then, with his naval situation definitely very secure, he prepared Egypt for his rule. See, Napoleon knew that if he hoped to turn Egypt into a colony, he needed local support. That's why, when his men had looted the Vatican archives during the Italian campaign, they'd captured a very specific prize, the only Arabic language printing press in existence. Soon, he was churning out propaganda leaflets in French, Arabic, Turkish, and Greek. "People of Egypt," began one proclamation, "you will be told by our enemies that I have come to destroy your religion. Believe them not. Tell them that I am come to restore your rights, punish your usurpers, and raise the true worship of Mohammed." It was a pretty normal opening for one of these. And to be honest, there are so many that we can't quote them all verbatim here. But here are some of the big points that Napoleon reiterated. 1. That the Mamluk sultans, a foreign minority, were the oppressors of Egypt. 2. That Napoleon had come to liberate the Egyptians and restore their natural rights. 3. That he was a friend to Islam, having defeated both the Pope and the Knights of Malta. 4. That no Egyptian had any reason to fear, unless they resisted, in which case they would, 5. Be mercilessly slaughtered. These proclamations were weird. On one hand, Napoleon had correctly identified the political and ethnic fault lines between native Egyptians and the Mameluke. The joint Mameluke rulers, Murad Bey and Ibrahim Bey, were deeply unpopular, and there was definitely room to pursue a divide-and-conquer strategy. But his attempts to claim the secular deism of the French Revolution was compatible with Islam just because they were both strictly monotheist were unconvincing at best. On top of that, these messages were also confusing. He used revolutionary buzzwords like liberty and natural rights that were unfamiliar to most Egyptians and had no Arabic equivalent, and the translations themselves were also just atrocious. Largely written by a French linguist, with help from Maltese translators who spoke an unusual Arabic dialect, they contained basic grammatical errors, with one message so garbled that it inadvertently claimed that the French were Muslims. With these messages, Napoleon aimed to get Egyptian religious leaders on his side, thinking that they would be key to holding Egypt once he defeated the Beys. However, his clumsy proclamations were instead mocked by the very Islamic scholars he so hoped to impress. Alexandrians, too, seemed to be against him. After the army fanned out to find accommodations, several soldiers turned up with their throats slit. On the edge of town, Bedouins also kidnapped several officers and held them for ransom, and in response, Napoleon sent his Afro-Caribbean general Thomas Alexandre Dumas to handle the negotiations for their return. But they couldn't lose time. They really needed to press on. With the threat of the British fleet at their backs, they must secure their position and seize Cairo immediately. The plan was for a naval flotilla to enter the Nile, while Napoleon's Army of the Orient marched inland across the desert before cutting east to seize river ports and meet the flotilla. Then all would move south along the river to Cairo. Good plan? Sure. Except, well, this was Egypt.
Yeah.
In July.
Oh,
the French war.
No. Ho, 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 ho. Ooh. Yeah, Napoleon really just picks the worst times to invade and mobilize, doesn't he? Like, my goodness, you can kind of. I'm already seeing a lot of similarities between this and his invasion of Russia. It's so weird.
Heavy wool uniforms, adorned with black leather and metal that heated quickly in the sun. They had no canteens or water wagons, and each carried a 40-pound pack plus a musket. Not to mention cavalrymen often had to carry their saddles, since Napoleon had incorrectly assumed that he could just acquire hundreds of horses in Egypt. The initial march inland took 3 days. Men collapsed and died from dehydration, and when they came across village wells, they lost all discipline and scrambled for water until it was drunk dry. And dozens of men, desperate from thirst, took their own lives. A dark joke circulated. Before attacking Alexandria, Napoleon had promised that each man would receive 6 acres of land after this campaign. Voila, they would say, gesturing at the barren desert, our 6 acres. Meanwhile, Bedouins stalked the marching column, harrying and killing any stragglers. They even snatched soldiers and executed them within view of their comrades, just out of musket range. Even after reaching the Nile, things definitely got no better. Upon reaching it, soldiers crowed in victory and threw themselves into the waters, splashing and drinking, until crocodiles ambushed and dragged several into the river. Men who dumped rations.
I'm going to hell. I'm sorry, that's so funny. I'm like, wait, Nile River. As soon as you was like saying that, I was like, oh my God, crocodile. That's why it was so funny to me. Oh man, that's so bad to laugh at, but I mean, come on, man. Napoleon's the worst.
To lighten their packs during the march died of exhaustion and hunger. A local disease broke out, blinding anyone infected. Most Egyptian villagers abandoned their homes ahead of the army, meaning they took all their food but the watermelons growing in their gardens, and if any remaining resisted them taking food, the French simply torched their village, which one could imagine prompted what happened next. One day, a woman approached a French officer carrying a baby, but when she got close, she drew a pair of shears and gouged out his eyes. It was then that Napoleon's generals began to whisper about the expedition. Several officers, gathering in General Dumas' tent to sample watermelon, began to openly voice doubts about the mission. See, while these men had known that Napoleon was ambitious, they'd fought under him in Italy after all, they were now starting to realize a fundamental truth. Napoleon Bonaparte was willing to sacrifice anyone, to take any number of casualties for his own advancement. It was the attitude that would cause one of his commanders to later nickname him the 10,000 men a month general. The Army of the Orient had nearly had enough when they ran into the Mamluk forces, coming the other way. The result was a confused battle on both land and river, with Napoleon forming the army into squares to resist the Mamluk cavalry charges. Meanwhile, the Mamluk flotilla boarded and captured 3 French ships before a lucky shot exploded the enemy flagship's magazine and caused them to retreat. But the armies would meet again. July 20th, 1798, near Cairo. They will call it the Battle of the Pyramids. And though in later paintings these structures will loom over the action, in reality they are 9 miles distant, barely seen on the horizon. Ottoman and Mamluk cavalry bear down on the French. Trained from childhood in martial arts and horsemanship, each one is a consummate warrior. Their gilded armor gleams, and armed servants follow them to hand them appropriate weapons. The French are impressed, even awed by the sight. Still, they give no quarter. Fire!
Yeah,
An officer yells, and cannons blast out canister shot, throwing cones of lead balls into the horsemen. French infantry, arranged into giant squares, so their bayonets make a hedge of blades, jet smoke with each volley. Now, the Mamelukes are proud warriors. They seized power from Saladin's dynasty, and even defeated the Mongols, but they have never seen modern artillery or anti-cavalry tactics. The Mamluk horses scream and turn aside, terrified by the bursting artillery shells. Those that do reach the French wheel away, unable to find an opening to charge, and shying away from the wounding blades. Even firing into the French ranks does nothing, with wounded men pulled into the center of the squares and quickly replaced. Then, the horsemen try to rush between 2 squares to get behind, but it only puts them into a crossfire. 10,000 Mamelukes die by the River Nile, killing less than 300 French invaders. For days, French soldiers will drag bodies out of the water to loot for coins and treasure. In one day of slaughter, Napoleon has gained Cairo. But can he hold it? Well, I've read the script for Ep 3, and let me tell you, trouble is really brewing.
That was pretty good, actually. I love that episode. I'm kind of curious to see what is next now. But I don't understand like how Napoleon doesn't learn from these mistakes, and that he just. But you know, I guess they're like saying that he got older and all that stuff. But man, it's just the mistakes that he made during here is just indicative of what he would do during his invasion of Russia. And I mean, it's great that they all follow him, but man, they just did it to their deaths, didn't they? I want to see what this whole Battle of the Nile will be, because again, I'm very unfamiliar with this part of history, with this part of Napoleon's history, because you know, obviously people don't like to go over it because it was like a resounding failure and such. But yeah, I think he got chased out of Egypt though, but I guess we'll see when we get there. Oh yes, what I was actually thinking about was, is there like a different announcer every single time, or they just do things differently? I don't know. It was just so weird. Like what the heck's going on? There's like one guy like that sounds younger, and then another guy who sounds way older. I don't know. I like the older guy a little bit better, but you know they're both pretty good narrators and such. But hey, I don't know. Let me know in the comments below, and let me know what you think about these videos. I love doing them, and see if you guys love it too. So please smash that like button if you want to see more sexy and nerdy content, and subscribe if you think I deserve it. And I'll see y'all in the next video.